Hey, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you may be. Thanks for coming by. Chris Petri here. We're doing watercolors, we're doing figures. I know you're going to really enjoy this. I know many of you actually, when I do figure work, you say, "Oh, Chris, please do more of these. We really like them. We enjoy these. We really want to do more." And that's why we're doing them here. And I'm going to start working these into my video selections going forward more and more. I hope you'll enjoy this painting here. We're going to go step by step, and we're really going to drill down on the basic format and basic methods and techniques you need to create a figure painting like this. It's really kind of simple. We're going to go in, we're going to show you how to lay everything out, working from a photograph. I have my iPhone, which I'm going to use. We're going to have my iPhone set up next to us here so we can work from that together. You'll be able to pause your video if you need to work from either this finished painting, or you can work along with me as we go. But let's all work together. Let's have a great time. All of you do, everyone's doing a great job. I just want to thank you again for coming by, watching my videos. I want to thank you for all the great comments, and I also want to say thanks to all the people that are newer, that are just starting out in watercolor. Everyone gave me a great, awesome response. So this way I know I'm going to start incorporating more videos with, that beginner's type mindset where what are we going to do when we first start out with our watercolors. So this is going to be just a great time going forward in our channel here. We're going to do more beginners style format, and we're going to continue on with doing all of our normal subject matter that we do on this channel, which is everything from figures, portraits. We do boat paintings, seascapes, beach paintings, cityscapes, landscapes, trees, buildings. We do pretty much everything you can think of in watercolor. So stick with us here. Please, always I say subscribe. The subscribe button is right down there on the right hand side. It's so easy. You hit subscribe, and this way you just follow along every week, and then you're getting those new videos every week where you can follow along and learn all the techniques and methods. And even if you're not so keen on doing figures, you're still going to learn how we're mixing our paints, how we're using our brushes, how we're laying out our paintings, how we're doing all the things that watercolor artists use. Professional watercolor artists have methods and techniques that they use constantly when they're creating their paintings. You're going to learn the same techniques and methods that all the professionals use right here on this channel. So stick with us here. Have a great time with this painting. Take your time. We're going to go through it step by step, so you don't have to worry about anything missing out on any of the key ingredients you're going to need to put this painting together. And it's a really beautiful painting. It's a nice, beautiful light in this painting. So you have a path with a couple walking down a path, beautiful sunlight, some trees, some warm and cool colors, some warm and cool greens for the trees in the park. This is a park type scene. We're walking in a park. You're going to have a great time with this one. Join along with us. We'll be right back, and we'll start and we'll begin the tutorial. Okay, we'll be right back. All right, we're getting started here. We just saw the finished painting. So painting figures is a lot of fun, and it's real kind of simple and focused, really, when we're doing a painting like this. This is two figures in the park, and it's kind of a very simplified kind of painting. You have two figures walking in the park down a pathway here, and we're really going to key in on the figures. Of course, you saw the finished photo, the finished painting in the first part of the video here just a few seconds ago. So we're just going to key in on the two figures walking, and we're not really going to incorporate anything else, or really maybe a little of color. We'll try to add a little color and paint around the figures with maybe some of the green, earthy type feel with the green trees, and maybe we'll try to get some of the trunks of the trees and some limbs in there. But I think it's maybe we'll try painting this pretty simply, with maybe just a touch of wash for the greens. Maybe we'll make it a loose kind of abstract feel with the background that we paint around our figures with, and the pathway will kind of keep simple as you saw in the photograph. So let's get started. Now with this, you can always, I have a piece of acetate on a piece of plastic. It's Duralar is the brand. It's called acetate, and it's made by Duralar. That's the brand that I use, and it lasts forever basically. So once you buy it one time, you don't have to buy it again really. You can buy like one package of sheets. I think it comes in a tear off, much like a pad, a pad of paper. You can tear off each sheet, and I think I bought maybe like a 18 by 24 size pad, and I still have it, and I've had it for like probably 10 years. I really, if you draw on it with Sharpie marker, you can just take it off with nail polish remover, the Sharpie marker. So that's what we're going to do. So what I'm going to do is just try to, in this case, I'm just going to try to, actually I will probably use this. You can use this though. So let's say you want to maybe trace the figures a little. You can trace the figures around and get like an overall shape. So you can kind of, and what this does when you use the Sharpie marker and you go around the figure and sort of silhouette the figure, and we'll do this here. Okay, so what we do is if we do that little bit of a silhouette, you can kind of see how you get a really nice, let's kind of just focus in on this a little bit here. Let's see if we can zoom in. If you do copy onto your acetate or plastic, you could use other plastics if you want. You can maybe improvise if you don't want to buy the Duralar acetate. You can improvise. There's all kinds of things that, like things that we purchase on an everyday basis. A lot of times they're covered in plastic, or the boxes and things like bakery goods might have like plastic on it so that you can see through a box. You'll have some plastic, so you can find some plastic without having to spend all the money, on the fancier stuff or whatever. I've been an artist for 15 years, so I have stuff that I've built up, like stockpiles of paper and paints and things like that. But it's, it was a long time of stockpiling everything, and getting gifts at Christmas time, a couple brushes here, a couple brushes there, paints a little bit here, a little there. But for this, you could use other types of plastic, but this works great, the acetate, the Duralar. But in any case, here you can see we have this silhouette that we trace from the phone, and that can give you just a good simplification of what you're seeing, because sometimes when we're looking at a photograph or on our phones, or even if you're looking at a book or a magazine or whatever it is, it can get confusing with all the different colors, the different tonal values, the shapes, the angles, all these different things. But if you kind of trace it first, you can kind of get a real simplified feel for what's kind of the main lines, curves, and shapes that you're looking at. So that's why this can be very helpful. So even though you don't use this and you might not use this and put this on the paper and draw underneath it, you can do that too if you want. But you can use this and have this set up and across from you while you draw the scene, and it gives you just that more simplified look at what actually the shapes look like, the figures. So I'm going to probably put this across from me just so I have a feel, a better, more simplified feel of the shapes of what I'm drawing. But I'm going to work from this here, from this photograph here. So I'll bring my phone around like this. So that's what we're going to do. And at this point too, you can pause the video and draw right from this. You could do that, no problem. So if you want right now, you can pause the video and draw right from this. So I'll zoom it in a little bit like that. And if you hit pause, you can draw right from there. You can also paint from this right here. So you can use this for your color scheme when you're going to do your painting. Really beautiful colors here too. You got like blues and greens and that beautiful, kind of like that raw sienna, raw umber, burnt umber type skirt that woman's wearing. So these are some really nice colors. Cerulean blue jeans, and then some lighter top colors there. So it looks really good. Just from an overall artistic standpoint, I think you'll agree this does look pretty good. This is a nice, good-looking drawing to figure drawing to do. More simplified too. We're not getting into too much detail. It's kind of more straightforward. So, all right, good. So you have that. We're going to bring this over on the side of the table over here. Let me see. We'll zoom back out. Like that. There we go. So I'm going to leave this over here. I'm going to move that out just a little bit, and I'll probably move that out like that. All right, good. So we have our photograph here. We have Fabriano Artistico paper, extra white, rough paper. I taped it down to my board, my working surface. My working surface is on a little bit of an angle. I usually say it's about like a, like if you can imagine maybe like a roll of tape, underneath it, like this size, like a 2-inch roll of tape underneath my board on the front of the board. That's about the angle I have on it. Or a 2x4, if you put a 2x4 underneath the board. I actually have a 2x4 underneath my board and it's wrapped with Mechanics drawer liner, which is kind of really grippy. It's really nice, so when you put your board on there, it doesn't slide around. It's really a stabilizer of a material that kind of keeps everything from sliding around. And so I have that wrapped around the 2x4 up here at the top of my table. And that's how I get my angle. So it's just a slight angle. And then sometimes when I work at my easel, you know, my easel's really almost, you know, it's almost straight. It's only on a little bit of an angle. And that's how I work when I'm working on my easel, outdoors or in my studio. But when I do my videos, I always have everything flat. And then let's tape down I'm going to tape down my palette so it doesn't move around while we're doing our video here. I hope it's okay if I do that. I hope you're not bothered that I'm taping down my palette here on our video time. And so we're going to tape this down so it doesn't move around. Hey, that rhymed. Okay, so we are in business here. We have the palette taped down so it's not moving all around. And we have our photograph, and let's start our drawing here. So what I'll do is I'm going to probably stick with my photograph and say let's make the figures just a little bit above the bottom of the rectangle. The rectangle, that's our whole important area. The rectangle is where all the action is. So we have to make sure we're dealing with this rectangle carefully and make sure we're not under using it. So let's just take a piece of scrap paper. So I'm going to take a piece of scrap paper now and just set it down quickly and kind of explain one thing before we keep going. Really important here, and that is if we have a rectangle that we're working in, let's say we're doing this rectangle here we're using where it's a portrait orientation, so it's a portrait, it's vertical. We wouldn't want to take our figures and do our figures like this. In essence, right? So we don't want to take our figures and just make them very small, and then we have all of this space around that is, you know, we want to make sure we try to fill our rectangle with a lot of subject matter. So, and since this is a figure painting, we want to keep the figures large. So we're going to want to fill up our we're going to want to do that. Does that make sense? I know those are very funny looking figures there, but that is the basic idea. Is let's fill our rectangle with subject matter so that we have a lot of subject matter, and then, you know, that's going to look much more pleasing than just having, you know, just a few little small figures in there that we can't really see, or it's hard to see what's going on there. Let's make sure we have a good design. This is a good design when you're filling up your rectangle with lots of subject matter and avoiding that, you know, little bit of subject matter and then having all that empty space around the rectangle. Does that make sense? I mean, when I first started watercolors, I did that myself. I had that same pitfall I used to fall into of starting out my drawing and making the drawing way too small, and then I had all that empty space left. So remember, you don't want to have that empty space left. So what we're going to do is we're going to show you how you can avoid that in just a second. I have to take a break. We've been probably working about 10-15 minutes now, so I want to take a little quick break, and we'll show you how you can avoid having that really problematic issue of making your subject matter too small within your rectangle, because that's really going to look unpleasant for your composition. So let's make sure we get it good. And I always mention too, before we take our break, please subscribe. Hit the subscribe button below. We're here every week for you. We're creating brand new videos. We're doing figure painting. We're doing boats, seascapes, landscapes, cityscapes. We're doing portrait painting, and of course, again, figures we're doing today. So whatever your favorite subject matter is, you'll find it here. Within a few weeks or so, you're going to have your favorite flowers, still life, anything you can imagine we're doing here. It's all watercolor. We do everything watercolor here. You'll always find your favorite subject matter, you know, every couple of weeks or so. So don't be afraid. Hit that subscribe button below. This way you get that notification that, hey, we made another video. You can check it quick. And I always say, please watch every week, even if it's not your favorite subject matter. When you watch, you're going to learn all the techniques and methods that we use here. And if you watch it, maybe practice along with certain techniques and methods that we're using, you're going to learn that, and that's going to translate into much better paintings. So no matter what subject matter you're painting, it's all the same techniques and methods and processes that we use on a weekly basis. It's all the same when we do everything. We're painting the same way. We're using the brush the same way. The paint's the same way. Everything is the same each week, except the subject matter changes, but we're still using all those same things. So if you're watching every week, and that's why I say if you subscribe down below and you watch every week when we're painting, no matter what the subject matter is, just watch. If you don't want to paint it, that's no big deal. Just watch, and then the next time you find your favorite subject matter in a week or two, you paint that and draw that and have fun with it, and then you work along with that one. And by that time, you've already watched a couple other videos, and you're going to be resonating with the methods and the techniques and the processes that we use all the time, so that you're not sort of, you know, not catching on as fast. So you'll catch on way quicker with your progress if you're just watching every week. So that's why I encourage you to subscribe, and you know, this way you'll be up to speed on everything we're doing every week, all the methods, all the techniques, everything we're doing, and you'll have much better success, and it'll be a lot more fun for you, because you won't be struggling to figure out what you have to do next. You'll already know because you've watched it many times and practiced it many times. So, okay, well, please subscribe, and if you can, hit the thumbs up button if you like this video, and maybe by the end of the video you're going to give me a thumbs up. Maybe right now you're saying, I'm not sure, but by the end of the video it's a thumbs up. All right, let's come back in just a minute. Let me take a break. Is that okay? I'll take a break for just a minute. I'll be right back. Okay. All right, so we are back, and we're just took a quick break to relax, give the concentration a break, and then now, when we come back now, our concentration's a little better. I'm glad you're joining us here. Everyone, thanks so much for coming by again on another great video, and we're doing figures here. This is a lot of fun. I know a lot of you really enjoy figures tremendously. I get a lot of great feedback when I do figure paintings, and so this one is going to be another fun and exciting figure painting as we go. So again, we just started with a quick line across the bottom of the painting. So I said, all right, let's start out making sure that we fill up our rectangle, our picture frame, with lots of subject matter. We don't want to end up with that problem where we draw a small bit of figures in the center, maybe the size of an eraser, like something like this, and then we have all this space around and there's nothing there. That looks really unpleasant and unpleasing as far as creating a painting, a beautiful work of art. We have to have certain things we understand. Same thing with people that are photographers and people that work in film, that create movies, the beautiful movies we all love to go watch, and the TV programs we love to watch, and the series, and photographers and people that create art on that level, in that type of medium. They always know that they're trying to fill up their camera lens, their camera frame, their picture frame with lots of subject matter. Most times you'll notice they love to zoom in on the portraits of people, the faces of people, the bodies. They love to zoom in and capture and fill that frame with lots of information, lots of excitement. So whatever subject matter we have, whether it's figures, flowers, boats, seascapes, landscapes, trees, mountains, whatever you love to paint, fill that rectangle up with lots of subject matter. Don't fall into that issue where you kind of just have a little small bit of information in the middle of your paper and then the rest is all empty. We want to avoid that totally. So that being said, we're going to just do a light, very, very light preliminary sketch. Hopefully you can see this, but I'm just going to start out. I'm going to start out and say, okay, here's our photograph, and you can see the figures are very close to the top. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to make a line across here and say this is where the heads of the figures are going to start. There's just a little bit of space above the figures' heads, and that's the top of the rectangle. So we know we have to be almost to the top with our heads up here. And then at the bottom of the painting, we already put our line across here where their feet are as they're walking on this pathway, and their feet are only a little bit above there in this picture. So let's try to keep that same ratio. And if you have to zoom in, you can do that, like that. So I'm going to even zoom in more so I can get a better, that's about what we're looking at there. Okay, so now I'm going to go up here and I'm going to say, all right, let's even break this down even more. Let's do some lines here. You can use a ruler if you want to. You could take a ruler. I have a ruler here, and I can say, okay, the male figure here is just a little bit to the left of the edge of the left side. So I can take a ruler and just make a light pencil line like that. That's never going to be a problem if you have a super light pencil line like that. Then I'm going to go over here and say, okay, this figure over here, the female figure, is the same thing, a little bit off the edge of the right side. So we can move her over this way a little bit, and we have that line there. All right, so now we're starting to narrow down where exactly the figures are. They're right in this rectangle right here. So we almost have a rectangle within a rectangle. If you can see that, the rectangle here is within this larger rectangle here, which we have taped off on our paper, our Fabriano paper. Okay, so we're really kind of narrowing down where our figures are going to be. So that's good. So now we're going to say here, pretty much they're divided equally The male figure's on the left, the female figure's on the right. Let's divide this rectangle in half again. So we basically, you can measure it if you're not sure of your, like if you don't have that feel for having things and quartering things and making thirds and halves and quarters. It takes a while to get used to that. So if you have a little bit of an issue where you're not feeling confident with making things, having things, and quartering things and so forth like that, I work in construction, so I have a good feel for that for many years now. My whole life I've been in construction. I always have an easy time to say that's halfway. That's you've got to halfway here, halfway here. I can easily do that. But if you're someone that you don't really work with maybe measurements all the time and rulers and things like that, you're not going to have that same feel. So sometimes I kind of rush through things because I'm have a good feel for it. But don't forget, use your ruler if you have to. So here we're looking at it and saying, okay, this is approximately 4 inches across. So then now I know I got to go 2 inches across to make the halfway point. Then I can make another halfway super light sketch line, just a little tiny, barely visible sketch line, so that I know, okay, now we have 2 areas here, 2 elongated rectangles, and each of those rectangles will have each of the figures, the male and the female, next to each other, and they're walking down in the park here. So let's do that. So now we have pretty much a good space division with on our paper with a light sketch, so we don't get, again, caught in that trap of just making a small little bit of figures in the center, or we get kind of off the game plan of trying to keep these figures equal in size. They're both about equal in size. The female is a little bit shorter there, but they're both, somewhat equal in size, So let's 2 equal elongated rectangles like that. And eventually I will maybe incorporate maybe some acetate onto my drawings to kind of show. You know what? I'm going to take a break just to kind of show you the light sketch I'm doing, because right now I don't believe you can see this super light sketch. I want you to really see what I'm doing here with the light sketch. So give me just a minute. Let's take another quick break. I'll be right back, and I'll use some clear plastic to kind of show you how I've laid out my very, very light preliminary sketch lines on my paper so that you understand fully what I'm doing here. Okay, so I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back again, and as I promised, I'm going to put some plastic over this and show you my actual preliminary sketch lines where I'm sketching out the paper here so that I have my figures in the rectangle correctly. This is what I'm using. This is what I was telling you before about. This is Watercolor. I don't get any profits or any kind. I don't, I'm not being paid to show you this. This is really the great stuff. You buy one pad of this stuff and you never have to buy it again. You'll have it for 25, 30 years. It lasts forever. But it's 14 by 17 sheets. And it's 0.004 wet media film. Watercolor is the brand, Watercolor. And it's the acetate alternative, so maybe it's similar to acetate. I'm not sure. I buy this type of product to help me with my artwork, and I'm hoping you're going to maybe buy it too to help you with yours. But this is what it is. So I just literally took this out of the drawer. I had one piece sitting in the studio for like the last 5 years that I used, and I didn't even have to use another sheet of it, but this is what it is. And that's what it looks like. Okay, and now we'll just take a quick so now I just took a sheet of this, like so, and I don't want to mess with that. Let me put this over here and put some paper towel over my paint. I'm just going to rest this over and just show quickly what I did here. So what I did was I took very, very super light pencil lines as we were talking, as we were going. The first thing I did was I usually do this for all of you so that you kind of see what I'm doing. I put a pencil line around the tape, the inside of the tape. So that's where my tape is around the paper. So I taped the border of my paper. That's that right there. Then I did, let's change here. Let's do a different color. And I can take nail polish remover and remove all this Sharpie ink off this acetate, and it's like brand new again. You wouldn't even know I had anything on there. You can reuse this stuff hundreds of thousands of times. Okay, so now we did this. This is the rectangle we're working in. Then we said, let's find out where our figures are in this painting, in this photograph. And then we said, okay, they're standing about this far up here. And the male figure's head's about this high, so we broke this way. Super light sketch. Now you're just putting, I'm showing you with marker so you can see what I'm doing, but you can barely see it, but I have it, the same thing underneath this with the light sketch of the pencil. Then I went like this and said, okay, now there's another line here. Then here's the center line. The two figures are like this. And now we have the two figures are residing within these two rectangles right here. And that's basically the whole of the composition. That's all you have to know. So you have your feet, where the bottom of the feet are of the figures. The heads are about here, top. The female's a little bit shorter. And that's where you're going to have your two figures sitting within your rectangle. And what this does, if you put those light pencil lines on there, and the way we got those pencil lines is we just looked at the photograph and said, okay, the heads of the figure are only a short ways down from the top, and then we make our line. The feet are only a short way up from the bottom. We put a line. Okay, there's a little bit of space on each side of the figures. We put a line there. We put a line here for space, the space division on each side of the figures there, so that you have your space divisions, a little bit of space in on the sides of each of the figure. You have your space above and below the figures, the feet and the head, and then you divide it in two here for each of the figures, 1 and 2. And that's as simple as that. So I just wanted you to see that, because underneath is the same exact lines in very, very light pencil line. So that's all you have to remember, is that's what you're going to do with super light pencil sketches to get your figures just where you need them on that paper. So we'll continue now and we'll start drawing. Take that off the paint. Okay, so here I'm going to do the head of the figure. I'll just start out with an oval. That's all I need, an oval. Maybe I'll angle it a little bit, make it a little bit more interesting. There's a collar there, and I'm just going to try to go along here. There's a shoulder. Like that, shoulder there. And the hand goes down there. I'm just doing this very lightly first. I'll go over with a darker line. You probably can hardly see my light sketch there. It's hard to, I have to do a preliminary sketch first. Okay, and then we can always know the figure is about 8 head lengths. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so I have to go a little lower, about there, maybe a little bit less, 7.5, 8 head lengths, the human form. Doesn't have to be perfect, but that's about what it is. When you measure the human form, you'll notice. And then you can use your pencil as a measuring tool and say, okay, from the top of the head to his waist is about that much. Or you can even say each head length, so you can say how many head lengths down to his belt. So if you take something, you can use anything. You can use a ruler, you can measure it and say Okay, might be hard for you to see this back in your studio, but I'm going to measure his head length and just see how much it is. Okay, so that's about 3/8 of an inch. Easier for me. I like doing the measuring like that and saying, okay, the head length is, and I can even take the lead on my pencil and just extend it so that I can use that as my measuring tool and say, okay, the lead, very, very tippy top of my lead pencil to the very, very next segment of my pencil is right there. That's the head length. How many head lengths down from his, how many head lengths is it to his waist? 1, 2, 3, 3.5. So now I go here and say, okay, head length is there. 1, 2, 3 and a half. So about there's his waist, his belt. So then I just get the belt, the waistline there. Okay, and his belt is there, and then his arm is going to extend his shirt. I can see the cuff of his shirt extends beyond his waist. Then he has books on his side. Okay, so he has some books on his side here. And then his pants come down here, down there. And then I look and say, where is his heel compared to the rest of his body? His left heel, and I look up there like that and say, okay, where does that line up? His left heel lines up with his left side of his head, and that looks good. I'm about right where I need to be there, so then I just put that there. That's his heel here, and then his other, I'm going to take his other foot here and just go up and make the angle for his other shoe, and that's a little bit further down, like so. And then his other pant of his jeans, the legs of his jeans go here, and that's there. Then over here, I want to find out where his waist is compared to where his head is. So what I do is I take my pencil and I hold it on the picture, and I say, where's his waist compared to his head? How does that line up? Okay, his right waist belt is a little bit beyond his head, and that lines up correctly, so that's good. And again, it's approximates. You know, you want to get it very close, but it doesn't have to be exactly. Don't go crazy. But if it's somewhat close, you're good. And then here, let me finish over here. We'll get his hand over here. That's underneath the books there. And just a quick little representation of his hand cupping underneath the books. Then here, he's got his shoulder here, and then down here, and his belt's here, like that. And if it doesn't work out, like again, perfect, you don't have to worry. But you want to get it somewhat close. So you did see that we went from the head and then measured down the head lengths to the belt, which was 3.5 head lengths. And then from there, we work down to the legs. Let's see what we have. If we use the head lengths from the waist down to the feet, head lengths, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Is that 5? No, it's a little more. Let's try that again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Approximately 5. So head lengths down to the bottom of the feet. Okay, that's 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. His legs are a little short, but I'm going to let it go. Not a problem. We'll just keep going here. We can't suffer over something like this. We just have to get it the best we can. And we're just doing a video here. You're going to work this stuff out in your own studio. And you're going to say to yourself, I got to get this good. I got to get this accurate. And you work on it. And if you have to erase a little bit, you can do that. I think this is close enough. It looks pretty good. And okay, so now we're going to go up here, his shirt, and then his arm is here, coming down, like so. And and what we're going to try to do is get we'll try to get the light good here. I'm going to make his head a little bit smaller on the top, because he's sort of looking down where he's walking, the figure here. So I want to capture that. So I'll make his head a little bit smaller up top here. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to make his head smaller up top here, because his head is tipping down. His ears are up here. Like that. Not a big deal. Okay, and then we'll have the figure next to him. Now she is over here. So where's her head compared to his? Okay, halfway. So about halfway there, like so. And we'll just do a nice like that. Then we're going to just contour draw this. She has a hooded sweater on. And then her arm goes down this way here. And her sleeve is there, and then I'm going to take, it's a little bit above there. Like so. Okay, so I did the skirt here, and then okay, their hands are joined here. They're walking hand in hand. I'm not going to draw any details with those two hands together. I don't think it's this is sort of a smaller painting. This is maybe like an 8 by 10 or 7 by 9. Well, let's measure that and see what we have here. So this is a 6.5 by 8. So 6.5 inch by 8 inch high. Now their feet are the same, on the same level pretty much. So let's now we have to let's be careful here. We can use our pencil and say, where's this woman's leg compared to her head? So the start of her leg is right at the right hand side of her head. So right there, we know we've got to put our mark there on where her leg's going to be. And then we put that down and we mark down, and then we draw that down like so. And then we can see the bottom of her foot like so. So she's got the bottom of her foot there, and her heel and then it's thin there, and then it goes up, and her calf is like so. And then if you have to just do a little bit of a light erasing to capture the, and then this side here, her leg is over here, so she's walking, and you can just see a little bit of her other leg on the left side here. Over here like so, like that. And then I might have got a little over presumptuous here and tried to make a interesting couple of wavy angles, and that didn't look quite right. So let me stick with what I'm seeing in the picture. That's always better. Try to stick with what you see in your photographs. Don't try to, like I just did, don't try to be too clever and start doing, you know, interesting flowing lines all over, and the next thing you know, it's not looking. If we stick with our photograph and stay pretty close to it, you're going to be safer and it'll look better. So, but you know, and then if you feel at some point you want to be able to be more creative, do it, you know. But I'm just saying for myself, I have to try to stick to this photograph because I'll get in trouble if I'm trying to do too many fancy looking lines and flowing lines and things like that. Same thing over here. I did the same thing on this side here. I tried to do my own little fancy looking lines and it doesn't look good. So I'm going back to looking at the photograph and saying, yep, the photograph captured what is real, so let's stick with what's real. Okay, so there we have it. This is it. We've got our drawing complete. It wasn't all that difficult. We just took our time. We just said, hey, let's scale everything. Let's make sure we place everything correctly. And always remember, too, this is a really big point. I want you to all get this. Please remember this tidbit of information because it's real important. When you do a drawing, always remember your drawing is going to look a little funny here and there. Don't worry about it. When I first started watercolors and I started drawing a lot, I would be sitting there erasing, and this doesn't look right, and let me draw that up. Trust me, the drawing is always going to look a little bit funny here and there. Don't worry about it. If it looks somewhat okay, you're safe. Once you start painting, you're going to notice it looks way different. It looks so much better when you start painting your figures in here, especially figures, because they're really tremendously challenging to draw and paint. But you've got it here. You're doing it. You're excited. You're drawing along with me, and you've got it. And again, like I said, they're going to look a little funny looking when you're doing your drawings of your figures. Don't get stressed over it. Just get the basic, what you're seeing down on the paper. And then once you're done with that, then you start your painting. We'll show you next how you're going to paint this scene. And like I said, it's going to look a little, sometimes you're going to think things look a little funny, a little odd. Pencil drawings always look a little bit odd. Once you start getting the paint on the paper, the light and the shadow, those tonal values, the light and the shadow, and you get the colors and the paints on there, it's going to look much, much, much better. So trust me on that. Don't start sitting there 15, 20 times erasing and redrawing. Don't do it. I used to do that. I'm telling you, please trust me. Just get it down halfway decent, as long as it looks good, halfway decent with your drawing. And you're not going to be, you know, a perfectionist when you first start, you know, especially figures. Figures take a long, long time to get good at. So you just got to keep practicing over and over and over and over. You just have to put in those hours of practice until you get more familiar with the figure and how to draw the figure and scale things. And like you saw here, I'm just doing simple things, scaling things. The head is, you know, this much. How many head lengths down to the waist? You know, 1, 2. I'm keeping an eye on where you can make marks too. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 head lengths down to the waist. How many more head lengths down to the feet? 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.5. 5, approximately 5. There's one head length there. 1, 2, 3, 4.5. So I'm a little bit, I should be a little bit longer on my legs, but I'm going to leave it the way it is. I don't want to keep fussing with things too much. And we'll see what happens when we paint it, how it looks. And then you can kind of see here, you can get a couple little bit of angles a little better. But I think this is good right now. Let's leave it as it is. We'll come back, we'll start painting, and you'll see it's going to go well. All right, we just took a break, so everybody, welcome back. We're actually going to get started now. We're going to paint this scene. We'll get a brush here and we'll start to mix up a little bit of our colors that we're going to use. And this should go fine. We're not going to fuss around too much here. So we have our photograph here. I'm going to move this up maybe a little bit like this. Like that there, so I have a little more room to paint. And that's good. That's right at the top right side. All right, so I'm going to start up top. And let's see, we're going to have some cerulean here. We'll mix some cerulean. And there's going to be some greens, olive green, sap green. I'm going to put a little bit of burnt sienna to warm up those greens a little bit. Okay, that's pretty good. A little bit of cerulean in there too. Okay, now we're going to negative shape paint. We always talk about negative shape painting, where you're painting around a object to make it appear. So since we have that green background of all the trees, that's what we're going to do. We're going to negative shape paint around the figures here a little bit. So we'll get some of that green. And I'm just going to paint around up top here a little bit there. I'll splash a little bit there. And we have a little bit of cerulean blue. And then I'll start to maybe find some of there's some creases in the shirt. He's got a light blue shirt, very, very light blue. So I will use some cobalt blue too as well. Some cerulean blue. He's got some darker shadows in there too. I'm trying to get some of the shapes I'm seeing. And I'm just, again, doing some shapes with his shirt. His shirt is kind of a light, super light blue. And it looks like it's sort of brighter at the tops of his, at the top of his shoulders is a little brighter. There's more shadow there. A little bit of cerulean there. So I'm going to try to capture some of the shadows. Like that, the shadowing. And we'll do a little bit of and again, here we're just having some fun. I wouldn't consider this like a, like we're painting, a painting that's going to be for a show or something like that, or like you have to just think of it as practice. So I'm just trying to. I'm thinking of it as my practice run here. So I'm trying to make some spots of dark green here and there, but not everywhere. So I wouldn't want to just take a whole bunch of dark green and silhouette everything. Let's keep some of the lights. So here, there's some lights in the distance where the trees are. So you don't want to. I guess what I'm saying is let's not go super dark everywhere around the figures. Let's kind of make it, we can make this a little darker like that. So maybe we'll make a little burnt umber and burnt sienna and a little bit of French ultramarine blue. Maybe we'll make a dark, a little bit of a dark, something like a darkish bluish brown, and that could be some of the, just very loosely, some ideas of branches, and not to go too. Let's keep it real simple. Let's make this a simple painting. You're not going to spend too much time and effort like worrying about the background of it. You just want to get some ideas of there's some branches and some tree limbs, some leaves. I want to try to capture you can keep some things light, so maybe some areas are more lighter with a wash. You're doing a lighter tonal value of washes in some areas, and then some areas you're going a little darker here and there, so you sort of get the feel of here and there some darks, here and there some lights, lighter washes. It's all greens in the background here, pretty much. So you can even take some brighter green, mix in some cadmium lemon yellow, and I'll splash some too. So I'm not going to, like I said, I'm not going to paint every bit of paper. I'll leave some white paper, I would say. I'm going to leave some white paper around the outside edges. And we'll keep going here. Let's take 1 second to kind of get a feel for that path. So the path that they're walking on, it's looks like a paved or concrete path. It comes across here a little bit below where the books, where his hands are and his books. It goes a little bit across there. So let's get a line there, a little pencil line there. Then as it goes across, it's pretty slight angle like that. And then as it comes around here at the edge of this female figure's skirt there, it starts to turn this way and go this way. So we have that there. Then this over here is slightly turning. It goes in here, and then it picks up around where his heel is, and it turns this way. So I just looked at the picture at at the photograph and said, okay, where are these lines of this pathway? And then I just kind of gauged it and said, okay, well, the path, the highest point of the path is just a touch below the books, about, a little bit. Then we got that line going across, and then it comes out over here by the bottom of her skirt on the right side, and that's the other side. Then over here, it starts over here. It's only a small bit of path here. If you wanted to scale that, you would say, oh, well, it's about a half a head length or 3/4 of a head length here for this area where the path is, the width of the path in this distant area over here. And then it curves slowly around this way, and it kind of goes in front of his legs, the male's figure's legs, and then it turns right where his heel is and comes forward. So that's all we had to do to get that path, that feeling of the path cutting across. You could also draw it straight through. That might have been a better choice, or maybe not. You can decide to. You're the artist. You can say, oh, well, maybe I'll just draw a line right through. That's not going to hurt anything because I'm going to be painting everything anyway, and that might be the better choice. So you'll figure that out. But that looks good. Then you can say, oh, well, you know what? Yeah, I did draw the line through, but I can always lift up a little bit of pencil line like that, and then it's all finished, and we're good. So let's continue on here, and we will continue painting. Let's have some fun. Let's get some more paint on here. Okay, now his pants. Let's do the male's pants here. The male figure. He's got those really interesting darker jeans. I put a little bit of Prussian blue in there. A little bit of burnt umber too, mixing a little bit of darker darks. So his there we go. His pants are darker here. So I'm just carefully placing the paint. Burnt umber, Prussian blue, French ultramarine blue, a little bit of that, burnt sienna. Let's get some darks and keep going here. Okay, and then we notice it's darker there by the pockets of his pants, and we can kind of see it's darker there. It's darker there. But wow, it really lightens up quick. So let's leave this dark here, and there's a little bit more dark over here, but not quite that dark. So let's rinse off our brush. So I rinse off my brush, I dry off my brush a little bit on the tissue, and now I'm going to start blending that in, leaving this light over here. This is really light. Now we can go in with our light washes here. And there's quite a bit of light over here on this part of his pants, on the back pants. So I'm going to leave that light. I'll rinse off my brush, dry off the water on a tissue, and then just blend that down like that. And then here, it's pretty dark over here too. It's got a little bit of light over there on the left side of his leg. More burnt umber, Prussian blue. We'll get the bottom of his shoe here. That's super dark there. Then there's some red, some burnt sienna for his shoes there. Very little. If I add too much of that red color or that brown color for his shoes and I say, oh, that looks too much, I take some tissue and blot it up. One time, blot it up like that. We can kind of add some water, add some blue to that. And we can kind of mellow that out a little bit. We don't have to make it as That's pretty good. That looks all right. Okay, that's always important not to keep fussing over something, so. And there's a little bit of a shadow this way, so I'll just do that. Okay. Now we'll continue on with more Prussian blue, French ultramarine blue, a little bit of burnt umber, a little bit of burnt sienna. And I'm just going to add that darker dark on his pants here. And then there's some over here. Some more darks. So I'm trying to capture the darks here. And the medium tones, the medium tonal values as well. But I don't want to go too fanatical here. And let's see, let's get the belt in here. He's got a brown belt, looks like a brownish reddish belt, so let's do that. Like that. Good. And let's see what else we're going to do here. We're going to get some more greens here. That looks all right. Now we're going to continue. We're about 15 minutes in. I'll tell you what, it's always a good time to take a break maybe, but before we do that, let's do a little touch more here. I'm going to do a little splashing, a little bit of olive green. I'll try to blend in some of that green with his pants. Okay. And a little more burnt umber, French ultramarine blue. You can see I'm mixing up some darks. Try off a little bit of the darks on some paper towel. Then I rinse off my brush, dry off the brush, and just blend that a little bit. And let things dry. Don't worry about it. There's some shapes here that I can get in here a little bit. Some shapes to try to Okay, so let's take a break, and we'll come back and we'll start working on our female figure. So we have a nice amount of some background colors, those greens. We made some warm greens here. You know, we used our sap green and olive green, and then we added some burnt sienna and burnt umber a little bit to just warm those up a little bit so that it's a more of a warmer feel, like a warmer sunny day. And we have that. A little bit of negative shade painting. Again, we paint around the subject and the subject appears. So that's all we did is we took our brush, we mixed our greens, our warm greens, and we painted around our subject matter. Our figures in this case, it could be a house, it could be a car, it could be anything. We paint around the figure, around the subject matter, and it appears. Look at that. And now we start to work on the shadowing on these figures, and we start to see how it can blend into the background too as well. So we're trying to tie in some areas here, and we'll tie in some more areas up here probably, maybe. But in any case, we just keep in mind we have to take breaks here so that we don't get fatigued and start putting on washes that are not going to work for us. We want to get a rest, so I'll do that now. I'll take a quick break. And I always mention, hey, if you haven't subscribed, there's a button right down there below on the right-hand side, right below the screen. Hit subscribe. You'll be with us every week watching our videos here. We're making new videos, watercolors, everything watercolors. So one week we're doing figures. Next week we might be doing boats, flowers, who knows. We're going to be doing your favorite subject matter eventually within a couple weeks or so. So always remember, when you subscribe, you're going to be seeing your favorite watercolor paintings happening right here. Everything's watercolor on this channel, so there's no confusing if, you know, everything we do here is watercolor, and we just continually do all the same methods and techniques. We teach those on our channel here, on my channel here, every week, so that you get those fundamental basics every time. And we're also doing some new beginners videos so that people that are just starting out, if you're not used to using the fancier paints and fancier brushes and fancier paper and all that stuff, you don't need to use all this kind of fancy gear. If you're just starting out, all you need is the basic fun little kit you buy at the local store, the art store, and a couple inexpensive brushes, and you're on your way, and you can start out and just see if it's right for you. If you can, you know, if you want to start out with watercolor, start out slow. Just keep learning the fundamentals, the basics, and we'll cover that on those videos coming up too. So on my channel here, you're getting the main programming that we do here is watercolor for advanced as well as for beginner students. So you can, as a beginner, you can try these videos if you want. That's fine too. Try them out. But always remember, as a beginner, you don't have to get into all the fancy gear and, like I said, all the expensive stuff. You can just try it out and see if you like it first. You don't want to keep, you know, putting a lot of, you know, of your hard-earned money into stuff like fancy brushes and fancy palettes and paints if you're not going to, you know, enjoy it. But if you're sticking here on this channel, you'll learn all the fundamentals you need to, whether you're just starting out or whether you've been painting for a while, or even if you're a professional and you want to learn new things that we're doing here. Come along with us. You're going to have a great time, and I'll stop talking and we'll get painting in just a minute. I got to take a break. My feet are tired, and I got to get a break. I'm going to grab a cup of coffee, and I'll be right back. All right, I have my coffee, and I'm ready to start back up again here. I hope you're having fun here. Are you having fun out there? I know all of you are doing a great job and having a wonderful time with watercolors and painting and drawing. And I know figures too. I know many of you, when I do figures, you're really excited and you send me those awesome comments saying you want to see more figure painting. So I'm really happy to do it. I really, figure painting in a human form and portrait painting is like some of my favorite subject matter. It's very challenging. I've been working years on it, trying to get better. It's just a constant effort of practicing. So as I always say, practice, and we'll get there. So let's continue with this. We have things that are coming along fine here. We have, I might empty my water here. It's getting pretty muddy looking. So I'll just change out my water quick. Try to keep fresh water. My palette looks okay. We're not using a lot of different colors here and getting too muddied up with our palette, so the palette looks all right for right now. Let's continue on here. So I think I'm going to, let's do the female figure skirt right now. So that's like a brownish gold raw umber. That's like a raw umber color, raw umber. Some browns, some French ultramarine, and Prussian blue for the darks maybe, mixed in with some brown. So that looks pretty good. Let's do some darks here. So here there's some darker shadows in this the skirt area here, and then this way here. Then over here there's some dark areas. And then there's another darker shadow over here. So there's pleats in the skirt here. And that looks pretty good. So those are the main darks. I see some dark here. And I'll sort of kind of work that there. So I'll try to work that down into the leg. There's a shadow on her left leg, which is forward. So I'm trying to leave that dark shadow there, which I do see in the photograph. And there's that very thin line there. And there's more of that line there. And do I see anything super dark? Not really. That's pretty much good there. Then I'll get another tissue here and take the paint, rinse the brush off, check off a little bit of the water off the brush as I do that, and then I try to soften these and maybe go into a little bit of the raw umber, maybe a little bit of yellow, maybe some raw sienna. So this is a little bit darker here. But there is some good lights on the middle section here. So let's do this over here. This is pretty dark over here, like so. And then we have lighter lights over here. So I'm trying to look at the picture, the photograph very carefully and say, okay, where are the darks? Where are the middle tone, where are the dark tonal values? Where are the middle tonal values? And where are the lights? So I can kind of see that the lightest lights are right over here. And if you have to blot up a little bit of paint like that, that works too. And I try to pretty good. Then we have a little bit of, and I try not to forget the some cools in here and there. So I try to put some cool colors, some cerulean blue in here. I don't want to get too worried or too caught up with just using one color, or I want to try to mix my warm and cools all the time. Okay, that looks good. Then we're going to get a dark for the bottom of the foot here. There's a bit of a shadow there. And so if I see a shadow, I just try to put that in there. Okay, and then there's a little bit of a shadow under here, a little bit of blue, a little bit of brown, kind of a grayish shadow look here, under here. And then there's some more shadowing under on her sweater. A little bit of brown, a little bit of blue. Kind of a warm, cool, a little bit of a dark spot here, like that. So we're trying to get some of the shadowing on the clothing here, the sweater. A little bit of a shadow there, we see. A little bit of brown, a little bit of blue, cerulean blue, and this mixture of raw umber and some burnt umber. And I just see try to do some of those kind of like shadows that look like they're like so. And then I try to soften those lines a little bit. So if you make some lines for your shadowing, I'm trying to soften them a little bit. And I try to just add a little bit of try to do a little bit of extra bit of darks there. Just try to add in some darks here and there. And there's some a bit of shadowing under her hair there. And then she has blonde hair. So we'll put some raw umber for her hair. And it's a little bit darker at the base of her hair over here. So we just try to do that. A little bit darker there. Blot up a little bit of paint if you have to. If it goes too dark or you add too much water, no problem. You want to get that little bit of dark there on the bottom. I think that's good. Once you get that little bit of dark along the collar line, that should be fine. And let's see if we can get some. Let me clean up just a little bit of palette area here. So I'm going to take some paper towel, dampen it up, and I'll just clean up a little one area here. I can make some flesh tones. So we'll just make some flesh color for the figures. So that's what I'll do here. I'll take some cadmium red, rinse the brush off, dry off some of that water. So dry off the water, and then some yellow ochre. Yellow ochre and cadmium red makes a really great flesh tone. A little more of that. There we go. Maybe a little bit of burnt sienna too. And you always are going to know that when you do your flesh tones, they're going to lighten up. They're going to look lighter. So it may look dark now, it might, but it's going to look it will look lighter once you... And then there's a little bit of flesh tone here on his collar. And a little tiny bit on his ears here. So we'll do that. And if you add too much, you just lift it up with the... Sometimes, you know, you might add something and say, you know, oh, it doesn't look so great. You can lift it up like that. Maybe just add a very, very little slight bit of... You can add some white later, some white paint, just to add something to that to make it a little bit more diminished, so it doesn't look as... I will add some shadow to the back of his hair. Like so. And I think it's coming along pretty good. It looks pretty good so far. We're going to add some colors for the books here. So we'll just add some color for the books here. Then we'll go back in, we'll get some sap green, olive green, raw umber. Go. So we're going to try to capture what we're seeing in front of us here in the photograph. So we don't want to... So here the photograph has a tree trunk right there. Sometimes you might decide you want to make something a little lighter, you know, as you go. You might say, oh, that looks too dark. No problem. Blot up a little bit of paint with your tissue. Here we have some I'm going to splash a little bit there for the grass and weeds and things there. And again, you have fun with this, you know, have fun with this, keep working on it, you know. Again, this is a composition. It's a composition you're practicing your watercolor skills, you're giving your figure painting some time to develop. So you're going to try these type of figure paintings. If you haven't done them too much before, you're giving it a try. You're just practicing on it. It's not like it's going to be a masterpiece when you first try these type of paintings. You're just going to try to start getting the feel for these, doing the figure paintings. It's not too complex. It's just two figures holding hands, a couple together, and they're walking down here, and they're having a wonderful walk through the park. And we just have to take our time and enjoy the let things happen here as our paints mingle and mix on the paper. Get some exciting color on the paper. All these colors that you see me doing now, they're gonna dry lighter, so they're not really gonna dry as dark as you're seeing them. They're gonna dry lighter. I'll splash on some paint over here. Maybe I'll add some burnt sienna there. I try to mix my colors around the painting if I can. So here I'll try to add some of that burnt sienna up here, down here. The figures have the burnt sienna and cadmium red and yellow ochre. So that's why I'm trying to do the same around the painting so that I don't kind of get into that problem of not mixing my colors around the painting to harmonize everything. So you always hear me say that, harmonize your colors. If you're adding a color here and there, try to add it to the whole painting here and there. It doesn't have to be a lot. It could just be a little light wash. Doesn't necessarily have to be as dark. As the rest or where you're putting it. So I'm just trying to add a few little spots of color here and there. And then maybe I'll put a little bit of wash on the pathway here. But I definitely will leave some white paper there. So you can see I can blot up a little bit if I need to. You could blot up a little bit. There you go. Alright, so I hope you had a lot of fun here on this figure painting video we did. I think it's just a great way to practice up on doing all the fundamentals of what you'll do when you do a figure painting in the future. You're going to want to make sure you have your, whether you're doing live figure painting, whether you're doing works from photographs or books or from my videos, whatever you're doing, you're always remembering that you're going to use those fundamentals of kind of plotting out and using your paper and using pencil lines to kind of get everything laid out correctly. You know, design-wise, you want to design and plan out your figures where they're going to sit within your rectangle, which we did here. We basically mimicked the photograph. That's all we really did. We just took this photograph that we're working from and we just really replicated it onto our rectangle. And that's all we did. We made sure that we kind of kept the figures full and large within this frame. And we showed you how to do that with the light pencil lines. And then once we had that done, we drew our figures carefully. We scaled things somewhat so that we could scale things correctly so that our figures, you know, will look pleasant looking, pleasing looking. And then after that, we just had a wonderful time painting, doing just fun washes, adding colors, getting things close to the photograph. We were trying to, again, work from our photographing. We get our lights and shadows correctly as best we can. And you can see we came close to looking pretty, you know, realistic with this photograph. So give it a try. Have a blast with it. Even if you're brand new at watercolors, you can still try this out. No reason why you can't do the same methods and processes we just did on this painting for yourself. And then you're just one step closer to doing another figure painting and another until you're actually doing them and you're feeling much more comfortable, much more confident with it. That's all it is just getting in the practice time, going through the steps so that you kind of just get familiar with the steps. If you have to write them down, you write them down, but it's all good. Enjoy it all. We'll see you on the next video. And again, please, if you haven't subscribed, right down below there on the right-hand side of the screen is the subscribe button. Please subscribe. You'll have a great time with us. We're making new videos every week. So every week we're bringing you new videos. And it doesn't matter what subject matter. If you love flower paintings, we'll be doing a flower painting within a couple weeks or so. But you can still watch the videos as we go. You'll learn all the fundamentals of watercolor, okay? So great to have you with us here. We'll see you on the next video.